Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi and good day everyone. So this week we're gonna learn about problem statement. It is very important for your FYP. So before beginning with any research, first thing first, you will need to understand what a problem actually is. Now, let's talk about a topic. Let's think of a broad topic like a social media usage. Right? It sounds like a problem, but it is actually not a problem. Now, in looking for a problem, actually, you will come across these two words. What's the ideal and then what's the reality? All right. So, first thing first, in ideal, how things are supposed to work. And in the reality, what is actually going wrong? Now, remember, in research, a problem isn't just a bad situation. It's the missing bridge between what should be happening and what is actually happening. Okay. For example, let's imagine if you go to a restaurant, right? The moment you see, so the ideal situation would be you expect that the food comes fast, hot, nice, delicious, but the reality, you probably will have to wait about 40 minutes to 1 hour. And the moment you receive the food, it is cold. So imagine what you'll be feeling during that time, the frustration that you feel. So that is the gap. That is the problem. All right. And then let's think of another example. Mm, let's relate to your life. All right. When you entered university, so the ideal situation probably you'll be thinking about the nice study environment. It's very productive, enjoyable. But in reality, right, you will actually see and experience that there are so many assignments falling out, last minute submissions, stress. So that's the difference. So that is your research gap. So your research lives right here, and your goal is to find out why the gap exists and how to fix it. Let's use this running example. Social media usage among university students and stress levels. Now, you ask yourself, ideally, students or university students should have healthy routines and strong mental well being to perform academically, right? But in reality, students are spending excessive hours on social media and reporting creeping levels of anxiety. Because of that doom scrollings, they couldn't control it. So the question now is, why is this happening and how does it affect academic performance? So that's research question. And it will relate into how exactly does specific screen time trigger this academic stress? So that's the gap. That's a problem. I want you to remember this. If there is no problem, it means no research. Now, your problem statement is the engine of your FYP or final year project. Without it, you're going nowhere. So, your FYP is like a car. If there's no engine, the car cannot move. So, as you can see here, without a clear problem, you will have no research questions. Without no RQ, you will have no clear objective. And without no objective, you will have no FYP. So, remember, your problem statement is the engine of your FYP. So, in other words, a strong problem statement tells your examiner or your supervisor that the issue that you are looking into is real, it's urgent, and it requires investigation. Where students normally get confused when writing a problem statement, yes, you don't start with a perfect problem statement, guys. Specific, no. You will need to write from a broad idea to a focused target. So, this is just like when you open your Waze, when you open your Google Map, if you don't set for a destination, you will never reach anywhere. So the broad idea, right? Like I said, the topic, social media, that's the broad idea. Okay, but it's too big. You cannot research the whole topic, right? So you will need to narrow down a bit the focus area. So let's say the topic is social media usage and mental health in university students. Right? It's getting there, but still slightly too general. So the research questions, as you go narrower, you will see how does the frequency of social media usage specifically impact the stress levels of first year university students. So you specify what is the target group, the objective, It's very clear here. And remember, how do we derive this? We derive this from the gap that we have discussed before. Remember the word ideal versus reality? Okay? Remember that was in your mind. Whenever you want to talk about problems, you want to find what is the problem, what is the issue, look into ideal versus reality, and you will find the breach in the middle. That is your gap. That is, or that will be your problem. It's my favorite question that you will need to ask yourself. So what? Why should we care? Why does it matter? If you're talking about, oh, it matters because I'm a student, it relates to me. That's why I need to understand this because I'm studying in university. It's an important topic for me. No. A fact is not a problem, all right? To make it an academic problem, you must ask yourself again, why should we care? Remember, relate to the ideal concept and versus ideal versus reality concept. But we are trying to search for the gap in the middle, the breach. We're studying, we are researching for the gap, the breach in the middle. All right. So you don't say because it's common, everyone does it. Because it's my favorite topic. No, you will probably will have to say something like it leads to severe stress, which directly damages the academic performance and long-term mental health. So that's why it triggers you. That's why you want to conduct this research. So in other words, you don't go around saying students use social media frequently. So what? All right. You have to say something like high social media usage leads to stress or affects the academic performance. Okay? The anchor of your chapter 2, a problem statement should be concise, persuasive paragraph that clearly describes the issue in need of your study. Or it must be targeted, focuses on one specific measurable issue, and it must be evidence-based, supported by literature and data, not just your personal opinion. No one cares about your personal opinion. Remember, it is a must to back it up with reliable um, literature review. Okay? And then it must be actionable. It points directly to meaningful investigation and potential solution. Remember this, when you are conducting research, we don't care about your personal opinion. Always remember that in your mind, all right? Think of it like a news reporting. You don't just say something happened, you have to give facts, provide evidence that will lead into impact. Okay? Every problem statement has three parts. We have ideal, block one. It describes the desired goal of healthy state. How should things be? And in reality, describe the condition preventing the goal. What is actually happening right now? And the consequence. Identify the negative impacts if this is not solved. So this answer the question. So what? Think of it like a building blocks. If one block is missing, let's say the yellow or orange box is missing, block is missing, the structure is not stable. So same goes to your research. So do remember these blocks or these steps, the ideal, the reality, and the consequence or the impact. Or if you're stuck when writing your problem statement after this, just use this formula, all right? Reality. So what? The gap equivalent to problem statement. So in reality, for instance, students are spending 6 or more than 6 hours daily on social media. And you'll be asking yourself, so what? It results in chronic stress, anxiety, poor academic performance, of failing grades. All right. But the problem is we don't know which factor causes all this. So that's the gap. So that's the breach we'll be studying. So you'll be saying something like, yet few studies or scarce studies explore exactly how specific platforms trigger this anxiety in Malaysian universities. So that's why it's important for us to conduct this research. So this is already a strong problem statement. Clear? Now you will build a narrative of your problem statement using this funnel, all right? Outside in or zoom in. You talk something globally, generally, then you narrow down the scope into your problem specific issue. For instance, in the broad topic, mental health is a critical component of university success worldwide. And the context, in recent years, social media has become the primary communication tool for undergraduate students. But in reality, the problem is, however, excessive social media usage is creating a culture of comparison, leading to alarming rates of stress among students. But as you write your problem statement, remember, in research, you don't jump straight into Malaysia. All right? We have to start somewhere with the bigger picture first. So you will study, you will research, you will write into what's happening around the globe. So you will say something like, globally, social media usage is increasing in blah, 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 blah. You're comparing studies across the world. And then you'll move into the regional or the general context. So you will say, in Asia, or among young adults or students in Asian universities or universities in Asia, for instance. And then you will narrow down a bit more to Malaysian context. So you will say, in Malaysia, university students, blah, 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 blah. And you will relate that to the problem. So high usage is linked to stress, blah, 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 among Malaysian students. So you will answer, so what? The answer would be, as it affects academic performance. So this final concept, just imagine like if you're making a coffee, right? You filter the coffee until you get something concentrated. So that concentrated espresso is your problem statement. Okay? Now remember to highlight the impact or the consequence. For instance, answering the so what, if left unaddressed, this stress severely degrades or affect the academic performance and increases university dropout rates. And what are the gaps? While general stress is well documented, there's a lack of research on how specific social media platforms drive this stress. Therefore, this study aims to investigate the relationship between social media usage and stress levels among FYP students. For instance, again, remember, good research always starts from global view or global perspective, then you slowly zooms in into your specific problem. All right? This is something that you will need to avoid from doing. Don't fall into these traps. The mistake, for instance, social media is bad for mental health. It's too general. Specify who and how, and then proving something we already know. Nope, no gap. How do we say this? Highlight the breach, the gap. Remember the word ideal versus reality? In between, we have the breach. So that's the breach, that is your gap. Highlight the issue which has not been studied yet. The breach, okay? And then, confusing symptom versus problem. For instance, symptoms, surface issue, students are falling asleep in class and getting bad grades. Nope. We are looking into the root of the cause. The late night doom scrolling on social media is destroying their sleep quality. Always research the root. If you were to be a doctor, you won't just treat the symptom, right? You will find the root of the cause. So same goes to research. Alrighty, so now it's your turn. I want you to open your workbook, alright? Complete the task in activity 1 and activity 2. And at the same time, I want you to complete the task on the e-campus. I will check your task on the e-campus. I will want to see whether or not you understand the concept of ideal and also the reality and what's the breach. Whether or not you are able to write your own problem statement. Okay? Do that activity. I will check. Alright? Do that. That will count into your attendance. Okay? So, this is your first step to your FYP in the future. You know now exactly what a problem is, why it matters, and how to structure it. Just all you need right now is to practice it. Remember, the takeaways are start broad, funnel down, remember the ideal versus reality, and the bridge in between or in the middle. Always ask yourself, so what? Find the gap. Now go write a problem statement that your supervisors cannot ignore. So till then, good luck.